Hey guys, and thank you so much for tuning into my channel. My name is the Lady Designer, and today we are back with another speed build video of our city zoo. And in this episode, we are going to add another animal of the Wetlands Animal Pack to our zoo. We are going to add the super cute and tiny platypus. Now, I actually didn't plan to right away do another episode of City Zoo this week, but I was having so much fun with the capybara in the previous episode that I was like, you know what? Let's go and build more in City Zoo. Also because I actually realized that the animals of the Wetlands Animal Pack probably do not really fit that much in our Abaya Zoo or like Ponta Zoo. As Abaya Zoo is like an African zoo, I feel like we can only add the Nile Ledgewood there, and Ponta Zoo is more about colder climate animals, so I don't know actually. Unless I will build something indoor for these animals or use like the aquatic dome itself, like I don't really feel like these animals fit too much in Ponta Zoo either, to be honest. But I don't think anyone of you watching right now really minds me building more in City Zoo, since I have the feeling that City Zoo is still probably like the best running series on the channel, also the longest with like 80 episodes or something like that. At least over 80 episodes right now. Although I do say this, but I am actually very curious to hear from you. What is your most favorite series on the channel at the moment? Please do let me know in the comments down below. I'm really curious. Okay, now let's talk about this platypus habitat, because as I mentioned in the previous capybara episode, it was a little bit of a challenge to actually find a good spot for this cute and tiny animal, since the Australian area actually was pretty much finished in our city zoo. But by removing like a lot of the nature and some paths, I actually was able to create a little area for these animals to build a habitat for them, so I was really happy with that. So for those that are wondering, this habitat is pretty much located right next to the cassowary habitat, but on the back side of this habitat is the okapi habitat, right away, well, pretty much connected. And if you would then like cross the bridge on the front of this habitat, you have the beavers like living in the rivers of your zoo, and then you walk straight against the kangaroo habitat and the kangaroo restaurant. Just to give you guys like an idea where this habitat is located, but you can also find the new upgraded City Zoo map plan now in my Discord server for anyone interested. Now, finding inspiration for this habitat also was a little bit of a challenge. As it turns out, it seems to be super hard in real life to keep these animals. So most zoos that have the platypus are Australian zoos, and if nothing changes over the past years, that is, it looks like San Diego Zoo is one of the only zoos outside of Australia that has the platypus. But if this information is not correct anymore, you do know more zoos outside of Australia that has the platypus, do let me know in the comments down below, as I'm really curious to hear what other zoos have them as well. But okay, like for this habitat, I used a bit of inspiration of the underwater viewing gallery of the platypus habitat, which is in like Hillsville Sanctuary in Victoria, Australia. I really have no idea if I say this right, but I will make sure to add the zoo name in the description of this video as well for anyone that is curious. Now, the picture that they found is more like this indoor building with this underwater viewing gallery for the platypus, but we obviously don't really have space for that here to make an actual building, so we will be making some kind of like tunnel area instead where the people will walk through, I guess. Now, I was kind of surprised how much space I actually was able to create here in this area still. So I do feel like this habitat actually turned out a lot bigger than I first expected, but it also does feel pretty big because of the platypus being just so incredibly tiny. It's just so adorable. So I first started off by creating the water area and the path where I wanted this underwater viewing gallery to be, and I pretty much started off with like this big area for water, and later started adding some more terrain on the edges where the keeper's gate will also be, and in the middle of the habitat we will be creating like a little bit of this island. Now, what I did really like of this real life zoo was how they added like these billboards for the guest education. I really did like the idea, so simply just stole it from them, I guess. Although my billboards are just some cute pictures of the platypus and not really that that interesting for like real education. But thank God that doesn't really matter in this game. Now you can, as always, download all these billboards in my Discord server if you like to use them for your own zoo. Like, you can also find other billboards and like webcam footage of other animals in my Discord as well. So please do make sure to check them all out if you are interested in having a bit more variation of billboards in your own zoos, and maybe you are not that good in making these billboards in general for your own zoo. So it's pretty easy then to just download mine and just use them for your own zoos, I guess. You can find like a link to my Discord in the description of like every YouTube video. So the rest of this underwater viewing tunnel, I should probably call it, will all be decorated with like a lot of wood, as I just really wanted to keep this all as natural as possible for this habitat. Even though the platypus doesn't really need a shelter building or something, as they are able like to use these small burrows that we now got with free update 1.9, I did feel like I wanted to add a little building in this habitat as well, which also helps to like nicely hide away the keeper's gate. Although I do have to admit, if we would someday finally get some lower keeper's gates, I would probably not make that many shelter buildings at all. Like, I feel like when you just have these keeper's gates that like half this size, it's just a lot more realistic to just add them to the edge of your habitat in a fence, and that will simply be it. So yeah, it is what it is, I guess. After more than 2 years, we unfortunately still don't have smaller keeper gates, so we have to deal with these bigger ones, I'm afraid. So alright, a little shelter building, obviously decorated with some hay and some new fences on the inside to make it look a little bit more interesting, and the outside will be covered with some decals to make it all look a little bit older. Although I do say outside, but I actually also did use these European decals on the inside of the building, now that I think of it. And I also made sure the shelter building has some like real windows, as I just find it nice to bring in some extra daylight into these buildings and makes it feel a little bit more realistic as well, I guess. So as I said, like in the middle of the habitat will be like this little island, but in order to make sure the keepers are able to reach this island, I did want to make sure to add like this little wooden bridge which can be used by the keepers, but also of course can be used by the animals itself. And the edges of, well, simply the whole habitat and the island will be covered with like the aquatic rocks and more mossy rocks to give the whole habitat more of like this dense and like foresty feeling that also matches this more European biome that we are going for with our city zoo. That is why I also add more of like the European trees and bushes in this habitat. Although I do have to admit that I also did check the platypus, their preferences, and did use a little bit of the bushes they like as well in their habitat. Now you will see me place some more chain link fences later on the edges of the habitat. Like, it's not really that much needed, as you can also create like a walk-in habitat for the platypus, but for some reason I still felt like it feels more realistic to add a little bit of these chain link fences on some of the edges, just to make sure you would not have like these naughty people climb over the fences or something. Like, I mean, even though you would be able to make like walk-in habitats in the game for these animals, this one just simply is not one made for guests to walk in. And to keep the animals safe, the owners of the zoo, well, that is simply just me. So I decided I just wanted to keep the animals a little bit more safe from guests being naughty and climbing over the fences. So I added some higher fences with like these chain link mesh fences at some areas as well. I don't know, it just feels more realistic for some reason. And other than that, like this habitat is decorated with like a lot of the smaller aquatic rocks and some common reeds and some African grass. I just really do love the look of this grass. And of course, like at the underwater area, we use a lot of the aquatic plants and stuff to make it all feel a little bit more realistic. Now, I do have to say, I was actually a little bit disappointed in the amount of enrichment items for the platypus. Like, they are able to use that cute new submarine toy, which we also added, but I did actually also expect like a ball or a tennis ball or something for them to be able to use, but unfortunately, that is not the case. But oh well, it is what it is. I did really enjoy building this habitat for the platypus in our city zoo. And as always, I'm obviously super happy to hear what you all think of this new habitat. Do let me know in the comments down below, of course. Leave a like at the video if you guys enjoyed, and if this video did inspire you for your own zoo. Subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. And yeah, I just really do hope to see you guys all in the next one. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye guys!